Might it be a violation of the duty of loyalty if one of those partners goes and starts a landscaping business in Stark?
Depends on if there's like a certain mileage in the contract.
That would be a nice thing to establish in a partnership agreement, right? When we're talking about some of these expectations. But it's kind of a case-by-case kind of scenario. Does a landscaping business in Stark compete with a landscaping business in Gainesville for customers?
Or not taking the equipment from there to use for your.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. What if you're kind of you're draining the assets a little bit of the business, or impeding that business's ability to function well if the equipment's being used for for a competing business? If it's residential lawn service, I'd say probably not. There doesn't seem to be a duty of loyalty, a violation of that duty of loyalty. But what if it's landscaping, like the installation of trees and sod for new construction? A company in one of, a nearby county outside of Gainesville, very well, they do business in town all the time, right? Okay, so it's going to be a very case-by-case scenario. But those duties of loyalty are things that partners need to keep in mind that they owe to one another. Now, going back to a partnership agreement. A partnership agreement is a perfect place to flush out some of these issues of a duty of loyalty. Partners could agree, hey, I have another business in Stark that I'm going to be pursuing, or I am pursuing. We agree that that is not a violation of the duty of loyalty. However, the big key here is that a partnership agreement cannot be a waiver of those fiduciary duties. Okay? What cannot be in a partnership agreement? There cannot be language in a partnership agreement that says, we agree to hereby waive any fiduciary duties of loyalty or care that we owe to one another. Okay? But think about it. We laugh, right? But think about how could that... imagine a scenario where one partner might try to have something like that in a partnership agreement.
I guess if they don't have one, that's possible too.
Because let's say one partner has all the assets and is looking for somebody, to, again, kind of contribute the sweat equity. That one partner might really kind of have some control, right? And try to use that to waive away those fiduciary duties of care and loyalty. They can't do that, okay? Or they can, but it just isn't going to be enforced by the courts. I guess you can put anything in there you want, but I'm talking about whether that, when I'm saying that, when I'm asking that question on the test, I'm referring to whether and it would indeed be enforceable in a partnership agreement. And so partnership agreements cannot waive away those duties, those fiduciary duties of care, of loyalty. Okay, let's talk about taxation. We've talked about all sorts of bad, horrible things about partnerships, right? Things we don't like about partnerships. We don't like the fact that personal liability is a big issue in partnerships, that partners can indeed be personally liable, jointly and severally liable for the negligence of the other partners or the partnership or both. But there is at least one advantage that we can think of, and what is that?
It's called pass-through taxation.
Pass-through taxation, exactly. So what does that mean? That means that a partnership, or call it A and B company partnership, we have A and we have B. That means that when a partnership files an informational tax return, which all partnerships should be filing an informational tax return because you have to comply with IRS regulations. So I guess if I was to say, is there a document that partnerships need to file? I'm going to say that yes, they need to file a statement of partnership. an informational tax return, but that kind of document is not required to establish the partnership. Okay, so when I'm talking about what has to be filed, I'm talking about what has to be filed to establish the partnership. But, okay, so for taxation purposes. So let's say that ABC company has $100,000 in income. So, and let's say according to the partnership agreement, A gets 60,000, B is getting 40,000. That looks like 46, but it's not, it's a 40. Okay. A and B will be taxed at their own individual rate. The informational tax return will say partner A got 60,000, partner B got 40,000. That's all that tax return is going to say, basically. It's just going to say who got what. That's it. A and B then file their own individual tax returns and pay tax individually on the amount that they received from the partnership. Okay? So this is pretty good, especially when we compare it to corporations, which we'll get to for comparative purposes in a moment. Okay, but that's generally how that works. It's pretty simple. Partnership has $100,000 in income. This is how it's distributed to the partnerships. They are taxed at their own individual rate. And that is, like I said, a fairly good thing. Okay. Last thing about partnership dissolution. A partnership can carry on if one or more partners leave, so long as there's at least two or more, right? What happens if there's two and one leaves? It's now a sole proprietorship, okay? There's got to be at least two. But if there were originally 4 partners and one leaves, or 2 leave, the partnership can still carry on, as long as there are at least two
If you
partners.
replace one of the partners, what does that mean for the partnership? I mean, is there any changes in the partnership of the agreement or?
Well, there would be, if there's a new partner coming in.
Let's say the father retires and the son takes over his side of that partnership. How does that play?
I mean, then, then the father is no longer a partner, if he's no longer carrying on as a co-owner of the business for profit, he's no longer a partner. The son would now be the partner.
Takes over okay.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess.
It's like an invisible change. It's just
Like a delegation.
Pretty much. I mean, I guess it'd be, I could think of all kinds of complications about it, his father's still taking income, his father's still profiting, that could make things, I should have even brought that up.
Yeah.
Because it's probably a very simple question and I'm overcomplicating it in my mind. But it would be, I think, to ask it, to answer it in a simple way, I think it's just a new partner coming in, just like anybody else. Yes?
Is there a reason that all law firms are partnerships? Because I don't.
They're not partnerships.
They're not?
No.
They just call it the
Yes.
partners.
But they're not. But they're not. They think they say they are, but most of them are actually LLPs, or most often now they're LLCs.
you're gonna have the highest level of protection they could possibly get.
Yes.
Mhm.
And if you meet attorneys in a partnership and they say, yes, we're partners under REPA, you might want to
Walk away.
go find another. That wasn't the best business planning that I can think of. At a minimum, they should know that there's some other business forms that they should probably be utilizing. Like I said, often LLPs or LLCs is generally speaking how most law firms are. And I mean, law firms are moving away from using the terminology of partners. I mean, they will refer to what used to be the senior partner as the shareholder, even though they're probably not a C corp. They're probably you just can't trust them. They're probably an LLC and they're calling themselves a shareholder when in actuality they're probably a managing member. Anyway, all right. Moving on to that.
So you can't trust lawyers?
I know, right? It's my own internal joke. I have to be self-deprecating. It's the only way to survive this business. All right. Any other questions about partnerships? And we're going to move on to alternative or other partnership forms. Okay. So, actually, somebody take a quick peek in that video on the screen. Is this board visible
Yeah.
up until where?
Keep
Tell me when to
going,
stop.
Keep going. Right there.
Okay. Just gonna make sure that and then on this side, how much can we see?
I can't see you now, so you can see a little bit. I think
Can you see all of this?
I can see if you move your hand a little bit more. Yeah, you can see that.
I just want to make sure that I'm in
That's pretty much.
parameters.
That's pretty much it.
Yes, exactly. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure I'm in parameters so
That's
that
pretty
folks,
much it.
folks out in YouTube land can see everything that I put up on the board. Thank you for that. Okay. We have alternative partnership forms, alternative business forms. We're going to start first with alternative partnership forms. Our ubiquitous LP, LLP, and LLLP that made you all probably want to throttle me when you heard them on the PowerPoint. So I'm going to try to really simplify these. Think of this almost as a mathematical formula. This is how I'd like you to think about it. Okay. If there's a formula in this class to memorize, this perhaps would be it. Okay, let me walk y'all through this. We can all agree that the partnership is problematic, right? Biggest problem being the exposure of personal liability that partners have for the acts of the other partners and for the acts of the partnership. And of course, there's these other business forms out there like LLCs and corporations that provide protection to business owners. So our legislature in their grand wisdom said, all right, we're going to create a partnership form that has some of these protections that are similar to the protections given to an LLC and a corporation. And we will call that a limited liability partnership. Okay? So, in a limited, an LLP is an improvement over your basic partnership form, right? Here's your basic partnership form. We improved it. It became an LLP. What's notable about an LLP is that under that statutory business form, partners in a partnership are not personally liable for the acts of the partnership or the acts of the other partners. Much like the members of an LLC are not personally liable for the other members or the liability of the LLC. Okay? So keep something in mind, of course. The LLP itself is always liable. The entity itself is always liable for its own negligence. The entity, the LLP, of course, can always be sued for its own negligence. What we're talking about is the personal liability of the member partners. And in an LLP, those member partners will not be personally liable. Okay? Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, so that's and so that's why I'm saying that's what a lot of law firms are. They became LLPs. They can still call themselves a partnership if they like that terminology.
Seems very traditional.
Want to be traditional, right? Old school, call yourself a partnership, but you're actually an LLP. And actually some of them are professional corporations. You'll see PC after some of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to really maintain this partnership formation for whatever reason, they can be an LLP. And that way the individual partners are not personally liable for the negligence of the other partners or for the negligence of the entity. Okay? What is a limited partnership? Y'all remember from the... Okay, a limited partnership is a little bit of a variation of a partnership in the sense that a limited partnership is one where you have a limited partner, at least, and in a limited partnership, that one limited partner is protected to a certain extent up to, I believe, until their investment in the partnership, only so long as they do not engage actively in business management decisions. Okay? However, the rest of the partners in a limited partnership are just like normal partners in a normal partnership. So, in a limited partnership, you might have the one limited partner who's right here, but then you have lots of other partners. The limited partner is protected, again, if they keep their nose out of the business. Once they start getting actively involved in the business, they don't have that protection anymore. All the other partners in the partnership are liable, personally liable, just like you would be in a normal partnership. So there's some protection, but only for this guy right here. Okay? Why might this have originally been the case? If, for example, you have somebody who's an investor, right? You have somebody who is investing money only in the business, providing capital. They can provide capital, they can get protection, liability protection, again, usually up to the extent of their investment in the business. But if they start meddling in the business affairs, making business decisions, they're no longer a limited partner and they lose that protection. Okay, so that's, so you can see how, okay, this was an outgrowth, right? What started as a partnership might evolve into a limited partnership if they want to take on, again, an investor or somebody who wants some of this protection for the partnership. All right, but this isn't real great either, is it? Because, I mean, the limited partner is protected, which is lovely, but all the other partners are just as exposed as they would be if this was a regular partnership. So, what did our Florida legislature do in their grand wisdom, right? We improved upon this and made this a limited liability, limited partnership. Okay? So that, see how we have LP right here? That's this, but we improved upon it by adding the limited liability to that limited partnership. And so now what does that mean? Everybody, not only the limited partner, but also the other partners in the partnership are not personally liable for the liabilities of the limited liability, limited partnership, or for the liabilities of the other partners. Okay? So it's a nice improvement on this business form. Okay? As always, the entity can always be liable. But the difference there, of course, is talking about the liability, the personal liability of the individual partners in the partnership. Okay? Does this make sense to everybody? I hope this gives some clarification off of the lecture. Because I know it was a little bit confusing probably in the lecture to just be hearing it for the first time. But if you sort of just keep this visual in mind, I think it'll help you see those distinctions between them. Okay. What document must all of these business forms, save one, have to file with the Department of State to exist? Well, they're going to have to file some kind of registration establishing themselves as this, right? Does a partnership have to establish anything with a partner? No, they don't. But to be an LLP, to be an LP, to be an LLLP, you have to register as such with the state to get that statutory business protection. If you don't, or you let it lapse, what happens? Back here you go. It's like Candyland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chutes and ladders. You go back down the chute, back to the bottom, you go. Right? You can tell I have kids.
I love that game.
It's fun. I know. So that big slide though is really bad.
I know.
Like the big slide that brings you all the way down. Life lessons there though, right? Okay. Another thing that all of these entities have to have, again, except for this one, is insurance coverage. Okay. The state of